Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So Derek, I got a fun one for you today because we're playing the demo of Terrifier the ArtCade game. And if you're not familiar, that's for Art the Clown, so it definitely is just supposed to be the arcade game. And I absolutely love the Terrifier movie franchise, and I love a good beat 'em up, so you combine these things together, and you definitely have my attention. And if you're not familiar with the Terrifier film franchise, if you're into horror and gore as well as practical effects, definitely for you. If those things aren't for you, definitely don't go anywhere near the Terrifier films. They are a vibe, and it's for a very specific audience. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down below as well. But if you watch me and the channel, you know full well I am a fan of 2D arcade beat 'em up games. I talk about them all the time. It is one of my favorite genres. What I don't talk about as much is the fact that I love horror movies, and I especially love horror movies that use practical effects, not CGI. Stuff like The Thing, stuff like the Terrifier film franchise, and so many other deep cuts out there. I always watch them and even go to the horror movie marathon at Music Box Theater in Chicago basically every year to check them out. So a game based in the Terrifier film franchise definitely has my attention. And this definitely has a lot of Scott Pilgrim versus the World vibes going on, at least for the graphical presentation. And it's one of those things, getting new beat 'em ups is always fun, and I love the fact that this one basically is wearing its inspiration on its blood-soaked sleeve. This has a lot of Splatterhouse vibes, not so much in the gameplay, but in the overall over-the-top violence it's displaying. If you've never seen the Terrifier films, trust me, what you're seeing in this game is tame compared to what Art the Clown gets up to. And as far as horror movie characters go, Art the Clown is probably the best new character in the last 10 to 15 years. He's gotten up there with the Freddy Kruegers, the Jasons, all of those characters in that pantheon of just great horror developed storylines, and I love that we're still getting those kind of movies. And it makes total sense that this is now getting a game, because Terrifier 3 basically almost made it to #1 at the box office in some spots, and that's definitely impressive considering that this was basically an indie film franchise starting off. And the game definitely has a lot of fun vibes. Now I would say, at least as a demo, the combat is decent, but they do need to make a few changes in my opinion to really get this up to something that would be that S tier. The weapons are definitely effective and they have a great hit to them, but as long as you keep them in your hand, they're never going to break, you're never going to lose them. You can even drop them on the ground, so it does feel like a weapons-based beat 'em up. Sometimes you end up with an actual weapon in your hand that feels a little bit too OP, and you can just absolutely run through the screens. Now, of course, this is a demo. They didn't want you to get beat up too hard because they wanted you to see the end of it, so it's highly likely when this game actually sees release, there's going to be a ton of balance, because right now there isn't even a difficulty selector. You just jump in, start playing the game. But what's on offer right now is a ton of fun, and you will see that you do get this VHS filter over the top, and you have a couple different characters to choose from, highly assuming that in the final game there's going to be even more characters, and it shows that this is going to be compatible with 4 players. Right now in the demo you can bring a second player along for the ride, but the third and fourth player aren't yet enabled. Now as far as the graphical stylings are concerned, definitely has a cartoony vibe to it, and it almost in some way feels like a very dark Simpsons beat 'em up to me from Konami. Those dumpsters in the background kind of just feeling like they have this very hand-drawn, supposed to be rough vibe to them. 100% works. And obviously you can see the Gibbs on screen. There's teeth flying, there's eyeballs, there's brains, there's basically every sort of gore you could possibly imagine in a beat 'em up, and that 100% needs to be there for the Terrifier film franchise. And if I'm being honest, they could double up on the violence and gore in this game and it would still make perfect sense contextually. Now as far as the gameplay is concerned, Art has your basic moveset for a 2D beat 'em up. There's nothing here that's reinventing the beat 'em up wheel, but it is such a settled genre where we understand how things should work that it definitely works here as well. But you will see when that Y prompt comes up, you have basically what amounts to a glory kill from Doom, except in Art the Clown's universe. You'll even see that there's some bear traps on the ground as well, so I'm highly assuming once the full game comes out, you're going to have more weapons and a lot more ways to kill your enemies. But as far as a 1-level demo right now, it is just doing it for me, and I can't wait to see more. It's one of those things, we don't always get a ton of new 2D beat 'em ups, and I am highly surprised and impressed that we're getting one in a horror franchise that basically almost no one knew about outside of the most recent film. And this game definitely has a fun soundtrack as well. It's like horror and rock mixed together. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, but I'll be back with a lot more. music definitely works in context with the game kind of driving the action forward, but it might not be the best thing you've ever heard. I would definitely say that it is kind of that mid-tier. It works, but it really isn't doing anything to set itself apart from any of the other beat-em-ups that came before it. And if you're wondering, no, the developer and publisher of this game did not contact me to make a video or ask me to make one. I saw a news article saying that the demo was out, and I decided to capture it just because I love the film. And as far as the enemies are concerned, all of the hit detection seems to be working relatively well here. There is a backdash button, but I didn't really find much of a need to use that in this demo. But again, this is just the first level of the game, or what I would assume to be at least the demo level, and it's one of those things that might get harder in the future, and you might really need to utilize that backdash moving forward. But the one thing that makes or breaks a beat 'em up, in my opinion, is that hit detection. If you're not perfectly lined up in some games, you never actually get a hit in, but this has been intelligently designed so that you're basically going to be able to hit your opponent so long as you were relatively lined up to them. Now, as far as the graphical effect you see on screen, that kind of VHS sort of tracking issue and a lot of that static, that is something that the game puts over the top, as well as kind of the vignetting and curving of the CRT glass, at least virtually in the corners of the screen. But you can turn those off completely, you can do scan lines, you can just have the raw pixels. I just figured I would present this the way the developer shipped it out the door to give you an idea of the overall graphical vibes they're going for. For me, I think it actually kind of works relatively well, and I'm not usually a filters, especially on modern games, fan as far as my gaming is concerned, but here it is good. I will say every once in a while, and I'm sure just to make the demo a bit longer, some of the screens feel like they take a tiny bit too long of time, but as far as this actually being tied into the movie, I love that basically we've just been running through a back alley to get to a film set, and the boss of this character is going to basically be the cinematographer of one of the Terrifier films. I think they may actually list him as director, but he's operating a Steadicam, usually at least camera op, if not DP, is going to be doing that on a film set, and trust me, that is my area of expertise. I am a filmmaker for the last 20 years, so I did kind of find that a little bit fun. But again, I just love the fact that a developer out there is making a game in the Terrifier universe, and they are just going for the brass ring of that gore, because that's the type of thing that this game needs. If it didn't have it, or if it was too tame, there'd be no reason whatsoever for it to actually exist. And at least in some of the quasi-super deformed characters you see here with the big heads, getting a little bit of a Combatrized vibe going on, maybe even Double Dragon. Please me comment down below and you tell me, what game does this remind you of as far as beat 'em ups are concerned? For me, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, at least in the presentation style, is the one I see the most of. We're going to be moving into the boss in just a moment. I will give you a second soundtrack sample as well, but this is what I mean when I say some of the weapons are just OP. And this piece of wood with all the nails out of it is just going to decimate all your opponents, and so long as you don't drop it too many times, you're going to be able to wail away. But here comes the second soundtrack sample, 35 seconds or so, and I'll be right back with just a bit more. If there's one thing I hope the final game gives us is a little bit better balance on the audio, or at least the options to play around with it, because the music is slightly too loud. But you have the boss of the demo here, cameraman, and let me tell you right now, I don't think I could ever have a fight with a Steadicam rig on my chest. And if you've never operated one before, and I'm assuming you haven't, they absolutely suck. Sure, it gives you a very stable shot, but let me tell you, if you wear that thing on your back for a day as a camera operator, the next morning it's going to be almost impossible to get out of bed. It's going to feel like lifting a 1,000-pound boulder directly above your head, because those things absolutely wreak havoc on you. While I've never had dynamite at the same time, it would be fun just to throw it around. But all jokes aside, I just love what I'm seeing here. As far as the action is concerned, it is competent. I'm sure it will improve. But as far as the art style and theming, it just has everything I want. If you take a look at that camera in the background, all the chairs and everything else definitely gives me that Simpsons aesthetic, except in a massive horror game. And you combine that together with some Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, maybe even some Splatterhouse, and I think you have a recipe for a really fun experience. And if you do like horror films and you've never seen the Terrifier film franchise, definitely start from the beginning and check them out. Just be aware that you're in for one hell of a bloody wild ride. But getting a new beat 'em up is always a fun time, and apparently this game is going to be launching mid-October, which makes perfect sense. It is for the Halloween season. Well, I haven't heard any news of a new Terrifier film. I hope we get one soon. But we're done. Art has won, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.